Warner Brothers has finally reopened discussions with Paramount.
There's no clear distinction between what makes a television show and a movie a movie. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Gofor Podcast. My name is Sam Hicks. I'm here with my co-host,
Grant Seat.
And Grant, what do we have going on in the trades this week?
So the biggest thing happening in the trades right now is that Warner Brothers has finally reopened discussions with Paramount. So Paramount's been rejected 9 times now. Initially, everybody's kind of expecting that Netflix is going to finally get this deal and they're going to buy Warner Brothers, which also has a lot of people skeptical. Now, Paramount is offering more money per share plus a $2.8 billion cover fee that would just cover all the breaking up with Netflix that Warner Brothers would have to do in order to continue with Paramount. So whatever their number is now, they're way up that. I think they were at like $110 billion or something at one point. So that plus the $2.8 billion they're going to pay to cover the breakup fee between Netflix and Warner Brothers. So it's a pretty big deal. It's an enticing offer for Warner Brothers for sure.
I think everybody's pretty pleased with that deal, and I think everyone's happy that Warner Brothers is going to a studio that has also been through thick and thin over almost 100 years. So, or over 100 years.
Yeah.
Probably almost 100. Doesn't really matter.
Over 100 years.
So it's good. I think it's great. I think it's good that they're going down that direction, and we'll see what happens.
What movies have you seen this week?
This week I watched Meet the Robinsons.
Yeah.
Which is probably my 300th time watching that movie. And I think it's such a classic movie. Like, it's so, for anyone who grew up in the early 2000s, it is an iconic movie. That movie, robots, there's certain movies that comes to mind. And Meet the Robinsons is just the references in that movie. It's the perfect movie. We've talked about this before on the podcast, but it's the perfect blend of a movie that's made for kids with adult humor. The movie's great. I think structurally it hits every beat. There's not a single moment in that movie where it lags at all. That movie it flows extremely nicely. Every character is understandable and relatable. And they leave no loose ends in that movie. It's perfect. They tie it off at the end beautifully.
That's kind of what we were talking about last week too, of just about animation and how even like movies like that are kind of under the radar now, like even that was significantly better than some of the stuff we're getting now, you know?
Absolutely.
And we talked about Hoppers and how the thing it really has going for it is that it's a kids movie and kids are going to rewatch it, not the fact that, you know, and maybe you could maybe say the same thing about Meet the Robinsons, but I think if you actually looked at the writing and what's beneath the surface, I think that you would see the difference between a movie like that and a movie or an animated movie coming out these days. I mean, we'll probably just keep talking about animation every single week.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
sure.
And to be fair, like, when you grow up in the age we did, where animated movies were coming out, you know, left and right, and they were all pretty good. Like, we've all rewatched almost every single one.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like, it's such a telling of, like, kind of how the industry is working, you know? We were just talking the other day about Tintin and how they might be doing a second one of that, and how that was still the era of, like, Polar Express, kind of, where they were figuring out, like, can we make animated movies look slightly realistic, or is that creepy? And we found out it's pretty creepy sometimes. Yeah. So then you go, like, kind of the opposite direction, and you got, like, movies like Luca that are, like, so close to cartoons. And I've seen, like, Disney kind of, like, just trying to balance the scales between, like, how do we make stuff that looks good, it's pleasing, everything, but also how do we, like, you know, kind of cater to the cartoon experience, you know? Like, Cars and Cars, like, looked like cars, but Lightning McQueen doesn't look like a real car.
No.
So, you know, it's I think they're just balancing the scales. And, like, that's one thing with Hoppers, when you look at those characters, they might not be my favorite, but you can see, like, that's a teddy bear already.
For sure.
Like, they're already made to look like stuffed animals. So, back to the product thing. But anyways, I mean, a little rant.
Everything's a product.
Movie I watched this week that I would talk about, I don't know, I've seen a few. I think I'll talk about one that's more relevant to right now. I just watched Dracula last weekend. That was like a Valentine's Day movie release, which makes a lot of sense because going into it, I didn't know a whole lot. and I was really confused why they were releasing Dracula in February, and I was like, this should be October or September or something, you know. But it was really, really surprisingly good. Like, I really liked a lot of the elements of it. I think, you know, obviously it's not the story like Nosferatu is, like the origin and all that, like classic Dracula, but like this is very much like leans a little bit more like a Twilight movie or something where, you know, it's less cheesy, but it's definitely more of a romance vampire thing. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, though. Yeah, it was pretty good. I'm going to make some mountains out of molehills now.
Let's do it.
I think that Spielberg is the reason that movies are bad now. Like, I think he's the reason for bad movies. And here's why. Before Spielberg, every movie in one way or another was considered, you know, an art form, you know, and there were still like some that I think you could consider like more product-like and similar to movies these days. But really, for the most part, like every movie that was coming out from major directors and actors was all about the art and about whatever. And that's why you have like 2001: A Space Odyssey, which like to an average like viewer, I would argue that beyond the visuals, like the story's really lost on them and like the meaning and all that. So I think before Spielberg, you get a lot of really art and artistic driven like dramas and stuff and comedies, whatever it is. And then after Spielberg, people realize like, oh my gosh, we can like bring way more people into our movies by adding like elements of excitement and fear and whatever, but doing it in more of like a public or more of a commercial way. And so nowadays you get like the Marvel franchise that I would argue started off to be something that could be really good. Like I was really enjoy the first Captain America, the first Iron Man, all those movies. Good. But nowadays it's like I could care less to go see a Marvel movie because I already know that it's gonna run an hour too long, and it's gonna be some random story about nothing that I care about. And so I think what really happened is you have artists try to replicate what Spielberg did and make movies for everybody and make these, you know, blockbusters, but it's missing all the foundation and everything under the surface to make it a good movie. So people are kind of like skipping right to the punch, and it falls flat. Even though they get the numbers for it, you know, those are like avid comic book fans that want to see those characters more than people are actually liking these movies. I mean, like I would put Endgame up against almost any other movie and say that Endgame would probably be worse.
Totally.
And that's, you know, one of the highest grossing movies of all time.
Totally.
So that's my mountain out of a molehill, is that Spielberg ruined movies.
And I think you're totally right. I think the way that he structured filmmaking and the way that we go see movies has changed. I mean, everything has to be a spectacle nowadays. Everything has to be a commercial hit. Everything has to be a box office smash. The story usually is lacking because of that, and because everything is so IP driven and so A-lister driven. We've lost so much of what makes movies good in the pursuit of making money.
Yeah.
My mountain out of a molehill for the week is that there's no clear distinction between what makes a television show and a movie a movie. I believe that the lines between television and film have completely blurred, that most television shows we watch nowadays feel like a movie. I think what started this off was shows like Breaking Bad. With shows like that, every episode is 45 minutes. Every episode feels like a full story in and of itself. You get a beginning, middle, and end every episode, which is normal on television, but the way it's filmed, the style of it, the writing of it, it all blends together to feel like a film rather than a television show.
Yeah.
And then you have shows nowadays, like I've been watching Landman, and every episode is over an hour. We had Stranger Things released this past year. Everything was over an hour. One episode was 2 hours, I believe, they showed in a theater.
Yep.
So continuously proving that there's no line anymore between what a television show is and what a movie is.
Yeah. Do you think that's a good thing? Like we should continue to kind of mix the two, or do you think that we need to keep them separate and, you know, continue to make movies and go back to making TV shows, you know, put them in their box?
I'd like to see us go back to putting them in a box, and that's a great question, because I'd say that I think that's the Disney cruise in the distance, by the way.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome, dude. No, I think we should be putting movies and television back into their places instead of crossing over, because
yeah. So I haven't thought about that much, but I will say that there's a very clear difference between movies that were made TV shows that were made probably up until the early 2000s and now. So Sopranos, I think, was one of the first like huge hit shows to be kind of same with Breaking Bad, to be like, okay, we're going to tell a story over the course of 5 seasons.
For sure.
So then you get 10 episodes a season. They're all 45 minutes. And then, boom, here's the whole story. So even in that, like, they had some soap and kind of went into details you didn't need. But you still kind of had to watch the full thing because it was a slow burn of everything playing out to the very end. And then ever since then, movies or shows have started to become more and more and more like movies. And one of the first things I can remember watching like that kind of shifted my view was when The Mandalorian came out in like 2019 maybe. And I remember thinking I really liked it when it came out. Like at the time, Star Wars wasn't super big again yet. I mean, like it was pretty big, but it had just started coming out with the new movies, and now you have Disney Plus coming out. That comes out on Disney Plus. And I think the first season was actually pretty good. And like I just remember really liking the way it looked and being like, yeah, we could do like, you know, instead of doing one movie, we do essentially like 10 short films to make up a season. So I thought that was kind of cool. But after watching shows like Yellowstone and parts of 1883 and 1926 or whatever, I just remember thinking like, I really like the characters a lot. But man, I would love to see just, you know, an hour and a half of this. So I think I'm with you. I think I even though I liked it at first, I think I'm okay with moving in the direction of separating them again and making one thing what it is.
Totally. And to what you said, another show that came out that was one of the first Netflix original shows was House of Cards.
Oh, yeah.
And that is hour and a half long episodes. I mean, and you feel it. You're like, I'm literally watching an entire movie, but it strings out for 5 seasons, and you get tired of it after a while. Like sometimes they should put it in boxes so we can have a distinct amount of time to know this story could be told in a 2-hour film. It doesn't need to be told in 6 seasons of 50-minute episodes.
Yeah. And I think for me, like, I really like, you know, trying a bunch of different genres and styles and stuff. And, like, I really like movies because I only have to commit to the 2.5 hours of watching that.
Totally.
And I could watch a rom-com for 2.5 hours, and then I could go watch just a comedy, or I can watch a gangster movie or whatever, a Western. Whereas TV shows, like, you really have to commit. And I think that's totally okay. Like, I've seen a lot of these long shows. But, you know, I think I also like the, you know, if we're going to do a TV show, I want it to feel addictive and not like I'm being tricked into watching the next episode. And, like, if you've ever seen The Flash.
Yeah, I have.
Great show, but
I stopped watching after like the 3rd, 4th season.
Nobody's watched after like the 2nd or 3rd season. And the reason is because you start to realize and catch on, like, okay, the story's getting not very good anymore.
They're stringing us along.
And then you know at the end of every episode, something's going to happen that makes you have to watch the next episode. And then they don't reveal what the answer is until the end of that episode, but then they have another hook for you.
One of Marvel's first TV shows, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., was that way too.
Yeah.
Just went on way too long because they were making good money off it. And it was during the shift between broadcast and streaming, and they just pushed it on too long. So yeah, television shows started doing that, and people catch on easy, man. People catch on quick to those kind of formulas.
And so then back to our other point, like, it could be said that the reason that the shows are the way they are now is because they feel more like movies. And I would argue that almost every show that's coming out now on Disney Plus that's a Marvel show or whatever is doing like infinitely better than the original shows they used to do.
Yeah, totally.
So I mean, like, maybe there's an argument for the writing actually has gotten a little bit better, and maybe it's more enjoyable to watch something that feels like it's a part of, you know, whatever movie we already like.
Yeah. We got some check-ins for the short film we've been working on / the feature.
Yes.
We shoot in 2 weeks, which is really exciting. We still have some work to do, but we have pretty much almost everything finalized. We have all of our cast locked in. We have almost the last draft of the script, and everyone who does short films or any sort of filmmaking knows that you're never on your last draft of the film until the day you shoot it.
Yep.
So that'll be a constant change, but everything else pretty much we have locked in. We have locations, and we may have to get a couple lights, but pretty much everything's set up for us well, so I think we're good.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. I'm really happy with where we're at because I think, like I keep saying, like we put things on the calendar, so we had deadlines.
Yeah.
And I was just looking today, and we've matched every single deadline. We had one deadline that went a week late, and it didn't stop us from being able to continue on or anything, so that's been really helpful.
It was just the song, right?
It was the song and then locking in our cast, which
Right.
we were supposed to do a week ago, and we locked in 2 days ago.
Right. But both those things, we're very happy with the results now.
Yeah,
And we're
100%.
No issues setting it back a week.
Yeah. So I think,
Yeah.
like, in terms of the short film, I'm like,
good.
I feel really prepared, and I've been doing my own research and just like working through, what does it look like? What's, camera angles, lighting, all that stuff, and just doing all the prep I can. And I think that's been really good. That adds to our confidence in probably shooting on the day, I hope.
Yeah.
But in reality, too, like working on the feature at the same time is really difficult because I get worried that, for a long time I was worried if I made any changes to the short that were too drastic, that would send my feature in the wrong direction. And, if we use the short as a jumping off platform for the feature, but now the feature's different, it's like, what do you do with that then? Then you made a short film that doesn't help you. So my solution to that was, and we talked about this last week, like a couple days after we finished our podcast, and the idea was, all right, well, we don't actually have to use a scene from the feature. That's not like, our job isn't to tell the whole feature story or set the whole feature story up with the short film. What we're setting up is the world and the characters.
Yep.
And so
we're not trying to tell a mini version of the short. We're just trying to tell a piece of what it should feel like for the feature.
So this was something super wise I heard from a writer, and I can't remember his name right now, but he said good short films are situations and good feature films are good stories. And so basically what that means is, like, we're not trying to make a feature in 6 minutes. So we don't need the whole hero's journey in 6 minutes. But what we can do is we can write the characters in a way that shows us who each of them are, and we can still set it in the same world in a similar situation to what would happen in the feature. So that's what we're doing. We're just setting up the situation.
Totally.
And then the features where we can actually be like, okay, here are the nuances to this character. You found out what you like about him maybe, or what you hate about him. But now, like, who is this character? So I think hearing that was like, okay, I get it. So now we're like, we rewrote the short. We have no worry about if it's going to affect the feature or not because we already know who the characters are. So all we have to do is set up the situation for them and let them be themselves.
Totally.
And I think that's like a huge blessing because a lot of the like little kinks we were working through came from the fact that like we're too scared to touch the script for the short film. Even though we know we need to, we're too scared to touch it because it'll mess everything else up. So that's kind of the update of where we're at. And, like we said before, we're just, trying to find out how this works. Yeah. How do we get jobs? How do we get paid? How do we keep making movies? So you guys get to hear it.
And we're both working really hard on our own separate roles. I mean, Grant's directing and writing, and I'm producing it. And so we're both putting in the work together and separately, and we're just trying to figure out everything we can and try to make it happen. So yeah, we appreciate you guys following along the journey.
And we'll continue to share stuff and updates. But I think both of us right now we're happy that, in this time we have to just kind of be at home, be creative, and try to get work, that we're actually still doing our own stuff. Because I think we've seen a lot of people kind of either graduate or leave and say they want to do something, and then they sit on their hands for a year, and then they get, whatever job they can because, filmmaking is just not something they've kept up with.
For sure.
But so we're doing our best to make it work and do everything we can.
We absolutely are. And to finish off our podcast, what is the Hollywood word of the day?
Okay.
Grant?
The word of the day is Nickelodeon. Most of you probably know Nickelodeon from TV, and you'd be right. But beyond SpongeBob, the Nickelodeons used to be these really cheap theaters. From my understanding, I think it was mostly during like silent film era, and where you're having one or two reelers.
Mhm.
So the movies are, maybe max 25 minutes. But what you could do is you could go up to these theaters and you could pay them a nickel to go see a movie. And, that's a pretty good deal now. I know that's a lot, especially probably during Prohibition and all that.
Yeah.
But these Nickelodeons kind of gave you a quick movie for a cheap buck, and that just kind of like stayed the theme. Probably kind of like Pulp, I'd imagine, where these shorter stories that you kind of get little bits of and kind of just get you excited.
Awesome.
So, there it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening and paying attention. If you like our content, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. We are on every single platform, so please follow us at the Gofor Podcast show. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week for the next episode of the podcast.
Sweet. See ya.